3 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 timeouts. That's like 7 minutes. Next question.
Sean,
Next smart question.
finish is such a general concept, but can you put your finger?
Oops. Oops. I fucked that up. I'm gonna have to move to this one. He's such an asshole. I was gonna share the entire clip, but you know. Next question, next smart question. Welcome to First Kick Seahawks, where you know you gotta set yourself up for success. You gotta set yourself for the first kick of everything. Sometimes when you initiate the first kick, things do not go well. But that's all right, because you're prepared. Sometimes when the first kick of football goes off, things don't go as planned. But that's okay, because we're prepared. So I want to talk about a couple things today. First of all, Happy New Year. Hope 2024 is treating some of you well, and I hope the New Year's Eve is treating the rest of you well. And for those of you that are watching afterwards, I hope the future is treating you well. What we are going to talk about today is a couple things. First of all, we're going to talk about the Steelers game that's coming up tomorrow morning, which is going to be actually more competitive than at first glance you may think. The Steelers team may be terrible, but they're actually fighting for a wild card spot, and if they lose this game, they're out of it. I'm going to talk about that. I also want to look at how Russell Wilson is being treated by the Denver Broncos right now, how we really need to fix that. So, first of all, have we established yet that Sean Payton's a fucking asshole? Surely by now we've established that Sean Payton is a fucking asshole. Let's take a look at this, shall we? I'm gonna turn on my audio output capture. Maybe it's not needed. Here. Let's go back to this clip, huh? Sometimes there's a commercial for bipolar depression. I have that too.
3 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 timeouts. That's like 7 minutes. Next question.
Sean,
Next smart question.
finish is such a general concept, but can you put your finger on
Well, listen,
how that can be?
here's the thing. You get in that situation, and it's a tough, hand it off 3 times, and there's 2 minutes and 48 seconds, more than that. So you go back and forth, you know, it's less than a score game. We were in those situations last year. And when a team's got 3 timeouts and a team's got north of 330, 340, that's a ton of time. And I'm answering the question. Be quiet, I'm answering the question. Be quiet. You asked a question, I'm answering it. You let me finish? That's what I'm doing, trying to.
He's just...
We made the decision at that point in the game with what we were wanting to do. I made it. All right? Now, it's easy when it doesn't work out to come back and say, well, if we hand that ball off and end up punting, then it's easy for you to sit in here and ask the same question again. Next question, someone else.
I mean, he's not wrong. If they're like, you were running the ball, why didn't you pass it? Well, if you were past the ball, why didn't you run it? Like... He's not wrong. Why would you ask such a stupid question? But, I mean, it could be a complex question. Like, you know, maybe don't be an asshole about it. Come on now. This fucking dick. So I just want to go into that for a little bit more. As we start off with Dan Orlovsky, as he joins ESPN and the Get Up crew. They want to talk about the treatment of Russell Wilson. And the reason I want to focus so much on Russell Wilson right now is because he was not my guy. What? You want to focus on Russell Wilson so much right now because he's not your guy? He's not my guy, but he's still my quarterback. Right? I don't have to like the guy to still be like, no, he's my quarterback. And also, I don't like it when somebody's not being treated fairly. So I think it's something that kind of needs to be brought up. When you look at the way Russell Wilson was treated by Pete Carroll and company, he was treated basically like he could get away with whatever he wanted. He could even run football any way he wanted. He could throw wherever he wanted. They made the offense to his liking. He was given every opportunity in the world to do whatever the fuck he wanted to do. Paid out the ass. I want this type of receiver. We get you this type of receiver. Within reason. Tons of first round picks and second round picks and third round picks and signings for offensive linemen. It just didn't work. Dwayne Brown and company. And so he goes to Denver and you get Sean Payton. And in October, first of all, you can say we're going to bench you in October. That's one thing. That's your prerogative. If you say, if Russell Wilson comes in and is playing as well as Peyton as Patrick Mahomes is this year, which he was for the last 5 weeks, playing about as good as Patrick Mahomes is. So you can do that and decide to bench him anyways. That's your prerogative, Sean Payton, because he's not your style of quarterback. You don't like the guy. You came in and never liked the guy. Whatever, Sean Payton. But in October, you say, I want to bench you. So here's the thing. Take an injury, give us your injury money, or we're going to bench you. But we're going to bench you anyways. So, you put him in the corner and say, we're going to bench you if you don't give us your injury money. But we know we're going to bench you anyways. It's such a thuggish thing to do. It's straight up trying to take somebody's money and trying to trick them into giving it to you. If you're not advised properly, if you're not smart enough to see that they're tricking you, you could lose your injury guarantees that's guaranteed to you. It's a shitty thing to do. So I want someone else, aka Dan Orlovsky, who has been injured as a quarterback, to talk about this more.
What do you think of the way the Broncos are handling this situation?
The way that they've handled it has been unprofessional, and classless. Listen, if you want to bench him, you're absolutely entitled to do that, both as the head coach, general manager, and the owner of the football team.
Yes.
To go to him and say, we want you to alter your contract that we signed off on, or else we are going to threaten to bench you and or bench you, is not a way that you handle business in the NFL. It's certainly not a way that you handle a guy that has been a pro and a Super Bowl champion for 10 plus years. It's not a way that you handle a person that was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And it's for sure not the way you handle someone who's a Walter Payton Man of the Year. This is not about feelings. No one's going to feel bad for...
Yes. It is not about feelings. It's about good, honorable business. Nobody is going to look at you now, Denver Broncos, John Elway and company, and say, oh, you're doing good, honorable business. I want to sign with you. Because if I sign a contract with you and I have an injury guarantee, you might not actually honor that guarantee, or you might decide midway through the season to just bench me, even if I play really well, to make sure that I don't get hurt or that I don't play the final few games of the season, to make up for, I'm going to put all my money into, for example, okay, I'm going to structure my contract where all of my guaranteed money is into injury guarantee. So if I get injured, a big chunk of it's guaranteed. So I'm safe. But the rest of the money comes from on-field performance. Yardage, how many touchdowns the team scores, how many reps I get, blah, blah, blah. So if they decide, well, we're going to keep you from playing a certain number of games, you can't hit your contract markers, which gives you contract boosts. For instance, Geno Smith couldn't get to his $15 million marker or any of the other $10 million underneath that because he was injured for 2 games and he couldn't play, and Drew Lock came in for him. If Russell Wilson, therefore, was benched early, he couldn't hit a bunch of those contract hits. And then also, if he had gotten injured during that time, he would have had a huge guarantee, and then now that's basically worthless. So he couldn't compete to make money, and the injury guarantee is worthless. So you could decide, well, this player is making a lot of money. He's playing really well, and this is really expensive, and we might not make the playoffs. Or I just don't like him, and I want to move on from him next year. So I'm just going to bench him and make it so he can't compete to make money. And then it basically just screws the player. And you might be like, oh, but he's making millions of dollars. Like, if you were to sit there and be like, your boss is like, so I'm sending you home early today. Why? Because I don't want to pay you. Wouldn't you be pissed too? It's fucked up. You go to work. Your boss can afford to pay you. But your boss says, I'm sending you home because I don't want to pay you. It's fucked up. So let's continue.
Russell Wilson because of his money, okay? This is about the way that you treat someone that in many ways has always been a good representative of your organization and your league. You're absolutely entitled to bench him, whether people agree with it or not.
Yes.
To go to him and say, alter your contract, or
yes,
we're going to threaten to sit you, is not the way you do business in the NFL.
Again, it's not how it has nothing to do with whether you like the guy. It's not whether you want to, continue using him as a quarterback in the future. It has nothing to do with how he fits in your system, and that it has nothing to do that. It has to do with the fact that in October, you tried to take money from his pocket. And that is a scumbag thing to do. Sean Payton, John Elway, and the Denver Broncos. It's not okay.
The alteration that we're talking about is that if he's still on the roster 5th day of the league year, so like March 17th, right, of next year, then the injury guarantee in his contract for 2025, $37 million, becomes a full guarantee. So they didn't want to have to worry about, can he pass a physical by March 17th? So can we push back the date, right, so it gives us more time to figure stuff out? That's what they were talking about when they go to him to alter the contract. They weren't trying to take money away from him, right? It was more about that. All right, I'm just making sure that people know what we're talking about. You disagree?
Absolutely, and here's why. By the way, the underreported aspect of the story, guys, is the extension, ironically, kicks in next year. He would have been a free agent. So, Dan, if you're a player and I'm in the Denver Bronco front office,
this is the big thing.
Say, hey, here's this.
This is the big thing right here. If you're, let's see, who's a quarterback that's coming up on the market. Let's say there's Kirk Cousins. let's say for some reason they really like Kirk Cousins, and Sean Payton's like, Kirk Cousins is my guy. I fucking love Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins is now looking at him like, but you just stabbed Russell Wilson in the back. I'm going to the Falcons. Fuck you, Sean Payton. Because you can't trust him to do honorable business. Or you're going to have to give me straight up cash that's not injury guarantees. You're going to have to give me straight up cap money, which you already spent on Russell Wilson. You're going to have to pay that twice. So it's going to be so much more expensive because they know they just can't trust you anymore.
Piece of paper, it's going to guarantee $124 million. Within that contract, we have optionality, and 100% of the time, players, coaches, whomever, we have a responsibility to do what's in our best interest. And if we could save money in 2025 because your play is not discernibly better than Jared Stidham, we're going to make that decision.
Whoa. Your play is not discernibly better than
Yes.
Jared Stidham.
Here it
Russell
is.
Wilson, for the majority of the season, has played like a top 10 to top 12 quarterback. The reason why they were 1-5 was because they were historically bad on defense. So to sit here and say, well,
Because you traded your best defensive lineman last year to the Dolphins for a first-round pick, which you then traded away so you could get Sean Payton, which we're going to get that third-round pick, which is either lowest, either the Saints or the Denver Broncos. So thank you very much. And then you couldn't afford to pay for other defensive players. So you let people like Jones go. And then, of course, you have Shelby Harris on that really good Browns defense. So you let most of your defense go, including your defensive coordinator, for this washed up offensive coach who was supposed to come in and bring in a system that was good for the quarterback he already had. But he's not a good coach because he only can coach players that match his system. He can't make systems match other players. Why does it look like a high school offense? Why does the run game look like a high school offense? I don't know. Sean Payton is supposed to be really good at creating effective run games. He talked about how he needed to bring a run game into this team. Signed McGlinchey. Talked about this fullback that he was going to use as a crazy weapon and stuff, and absolutely none of that happened. And you know the player that was most effective on the offense? It was Russell goddamn Wilson. Let's continue.
Not much better than Jarrett Stidham? We have no idea what Jarrett Stidham
But
is.
Sean Payton is saying that I believe I could get as much out of or close to Jared Stidham
That's fine.
Right. So I'm going to be held accountable by the Walton family by this decision. So what I'm doing is in the best interest of the Denver Broncos. Hard stop.
No. What he's doing is in the best interest of Sean Payton. Let me explain. Here's what I think happened. I have no facts. This is what I think happened. Sean Payton saw an excellent opportunity to make a ton of fucking money by unretiring because the Waltons bought the Denver Broncos. And you know who has the most money in the NFL when it comes to the NFL owners? It's not Stan Kroenke of the Rams anymore. It is the Waltons of the Denver Broncos. And he signed a gigantic fucking contract because Russell Wilson came in and the team tanked with Nathaniel Hackett. But they had an amazing defense. They just couldn't score over 20 points a game. If only they could score over 20 points a game. Well, Russell Wilson and company, who was admittedly having problems and coming off a defunct finger, needed help. And they needed a coach that wasn't like, I don't know, a Jim Mora. Seahawks fans know what that's about. So they bring in Sean Payton, the Drew Brees guy, who, if Russell Wilson was the guy in the building who's constantly like, yeah, I want to make my own decisions, and I'm up with the executives, his favorite quarterback that he's always preaching about is Drew Brees, who he always wants to be just like. He's even doing the pre-game stuff while he's injured, like Drew Brees, where he's working out and stuff the same way to get his mindset right. He's the good kind of Christian man, same way. He sees himself very similar. They have the similar body builds and stuff. He wants to throw the same way in the pocket. He also talked about how he tried to match his footwork like Drew Brees in the pocket. They talk all the time. When he moved to Denver, he said that he reached out to Drew Brees a lot. And then when he got a hold of Sean Payton, he talked to Drew Brees a lot. Drew Brees is his dude. And I think it obviously makes sense that Sean Payton was his fucking dude. He adored Sean Payton, I believe. And so then Sean Payton comes in the building and wants to get rid of Russell Wilson. And immediately hates him. For whatever reason. Some people say it's because he got some weird grudge against him while hanging out with media pundits. Some people say it's because it's a power trip and Russell Wilson had power in before, so he's trying to clear the place out. Some people say he doesn't like that the money is being spent there, and the Waltons and him don't like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to clear this place out and it's going to be my team now. And so they just want to get rid of him, and it doesn't matter how good he is unless he's putting up like 50 points, because then it'll be credited to the old owners for doing it. So they just want to get rid of him. And it could be also that some people say that he's a bad coach who had tons of 7-9 seasons despite having Drew Brees and this amazing offense that wouldn't stop. And maybe he's not a good coach, but Drew Brees was the amazing team because he kept outperforming terrible defenses. And so if Sean Payton doesn't have a top 5 offense that's Hall of Fame level, he'll just never make the playoffs ever. And so he's using Russell Wilson as a scapegoat and throwing him under the bus because his defense is terrible. Which is more likely, because his defense is fucking terrible.
That's fine.
And we're going to pay you a lot of money because we have that obligation, but we have a stop decision. So what I'm doing is in the best interest of the Denver Broncos. Hard stop.
That's fine.
And we're going to pay you a lot of money because we have that obligation, but we have a responsibility.
But
and in my opinion,
here's what I don't like a lot. What I've heard is, well, Russell Wilson, no one feel bad for him. He's still getting his money. Just because you pay someone X amount of dollars doesn't mean that you can undercut them and undermine how you treat them.
But
that doesn't make it okay.
Hey, like from a business standpoint, I agree with you. Mike T, like they're making the decision based on money and the financials. And when Daniel says this is the deal that we signed or we offered Russell Wilson, it's not the deal that we or us did because Sean Payton wasn't there.
True.
Right?
True.
And so the business regime of it is not a problem to me. But let's be honest, Sean Payton has behaved as a thug since he became the coach of the Denver Broncos.
He has absolutely zero interest in Russell Wilson. He comes out and yells at Russell Wilson when an offensive lineman false starts and just completely loses it. Never did that to Drew Brees when Drew Brees would false start. Comes out and he's constantly criticizing Russell Wilson out in public. Makes the quit kissing babies comment. You know who would kiss babies all the time? Fucking Drew Brees would. And like literally... it was known for having his kids around all the time, and so I don't know what else to tell you, dude.
Immediately when he gets in the building, he starts to undercut Russell Wilson personally and professionally from his first press conference on. He tells Russell Wilson, you have to stop kissing babies, stop behaving as if you're running for office. Nobody kissed more babies in New Orleans than Drew Brees. Period, point blank. From the beginning, he walked into this building and he had a point to prove when it came to Russell Wilson. You're going to be just like everybody else. I'm going to treat you just like I treat everyone else on the team. That's not the way it works with franchise quarterbacks, right? With a franchise quarterback, he's talked to differently.
I've never been in an NFL locker room, so I don't know. I do know you shouldn't talk to players that way. The yelling and dressing down, that's one thing. Because different mindset, right? Different breeds as far as mentalities. But as far as what the contract thing in October, don't do that to offensive linemen, defensive linemen, long snappers, pass rushers. Don't do that to anybody, right? It should be obvious. But apparently, sneaky stuff has been going on since the beginning of NFL contracts.
Conversations instead of being talked at. You don't berate them on the sideline against the Detroit Lions because you don't agree with their play. We watched Sean Payton in New Orleans for a decade and a half never treat his quarterback this way. And so now as you move
he's
through
a dick.
and you hear about the phone call, you hear about talking to his representatives, about restructuring or doing whatever they wanted him to do to the contract, this was just a means to an end for Sean Payton. This was going to happen at some point. And
you know what Sean Payton is most known for? Headhunting. He was headhunting Russell Wilson since he got the job.
It just happened toward the end of the. I don't believe there was a thing Russell Wilson could do to make Sean Payton like him. I think from a personality standpoint, it was a bad match. I think schematically, it was a bad match. But my point is this. My point is this. Let's hold Sean Payton to some sort of professional accountability. His behavior as the head coach of the Denver Broncos is unacceptable. If I'm the Walton family, I do not want somebody representing me this way. And I want to say this about Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson takes a hell of a lot of heat. The humility that Russell Wilson...
Sean Payton acts like, I was the man in New Orleans. I won a Super Bowl. I did all this shit with Drew Brees. Look what I did with fucking Hill, Alvin Kamara, Thomas. Like, I was that dude. And then I went onto TV and everyone knew I was that fucking dude. And now I'm going to make all this money in fucking Denver. How dare you get in my way? Like, he seems like such a fucking asshole.
Has shown the professionalism that Russell Wilson has shown inside of that building while being treated that way by that man. All I got to say to Sean Payton is you lucky you had the right one.
Russell has always been an absolute businessman. I called him a code switcher the other day to kind of tease him a bit. But he is poised. He's got a good heart, and he should never be yelled at like that. Whenever another player's berated him, I'm like, don't you dare talk to him like that. If it was Ben Roethlisberger getting yelled at, I'm like, man, fuck him, right? But when Russell's getting yelled at, I'm like, man, that kid is innocent. like, come on, don't do that to Russell, right? My protective spirit comes out, and I'm like, don't do that to Russell. That's little brother. Is the feeling I get with Russell Wilson, and so it's like, I think the NFL as a whole right now is kind of getting that, like, wait, you're doing that to Russell Wilson? How dare you do that to Russell Wilson? Like, first of all, he's the champ. Second of all, he's great. Third of all, he's super nice. Fourth of all, he's so nice he won Walter Payton Man of the Year award. And fifth of all, man, go fuck yourself. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting from all of these other players and pundits.
Say to Sean Payton is you lucky you had the right one.
That's right.
And so,
Amen. That's well said.
lot to unpack there. So first of all, I agree, RC. I've been saying all spring and summer that this was going to happen. Sean Payton was coming in and playing with house money. If it worked with Russell Wilson, I'm a genius. I know how to coach quarterbacks. If it doesn't, I didn't make the mistake. So I figured this was going to happen. He moved on from Randy Gregory, Kareem Jackson. He's blowing up the whole building. So to me, like,
and the most amazing thing is he's not the first coach to do it. John Gruden was the same way. There's been tons of coaches throughout the decades who have just been like thrown in and acquired a good team, great players, and then been called legendary coaches. And then there's been other coaches that have been amazing, but because of the circumstances they're under or because of the ownership above them, they're not under a good situation where they can just coach, right? Sometimes there's just bullshit business going on in the background. You know, there's something to be said about setting up players for mental success and letting the players be good performers.
Like this was inevitable. As it relates to Russell Wilson, he will be, to me, Baker Mayfield 2.0. He'll have a chance to start someplace next year. And as it relates to how he's treating players, RC, we talked about it every day when I was with the Dolphins or the Jets, which is not only the Walton family, but the player community. That's what free agency is all about. If people don't want to go there, that's the ultimate check and balance within our system is if players feel like they're not being treated fairly within the system, they're not going to sign there.
I'm going to stop it there. I have the link for the rest of the video in the description below. We're going to keep going, but thank you so much for being there. Please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Two things to end that video. Number one, he's right. Teams are not supposed to do things like that because of checks and balances. Because checks start to affect their balances. If you treat players like shit and your location is shit and your fans are shit and your coaches are shit and your owners are shit and your GMs are shit and the other players on the team are shit, free agents aren't going to want to go there. Coaches aren't going to want to go there. Potential scouts and aren't going to want to go there. John Elway's going to stay there, I'm sure, unless the Waltons decide to move on from him. It's going to be interesting what happens to them because when they move on from Russell Wilson, they still got to eat his paycheck next year. So it's probably you're a Stidman. And then Sean Payton's going to be like, well, I have another year where I have to deal with his contract. So then he's going to have like 3 or 4 years after that where he's going to sit around and he's like, yeah, I'm going to build. I'm going to use the first 2 years building. Third year I'm competing. And then fourth year I'm good to go. And then, yeah, I got it, right? And build his legend. He's going to go find some quarterback or draft some quarterback high. It'll be some bullshit. It's just the way it is. Because now they're going to be patient, right? Because they weren't patient before they flipped it, so now they have to be patient. But they're not going to have any free agents or anything. They're going to have to build it the slow, old-fashioned way. But now, let's look at Russell Wilson, because do you think he's just going to let his career end like that? He was played well. He's physically good to go. I don't think he's just gonna retire, go sign with the Seahawks for one game and then retire. Now, I don't necessarily think he's going back to Seattle. Is he? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it for a little bit. Geno Smith, his contract ends at the end of the year if we decide not to pick it up. If we do pick it up, it's like $32 million. Which if we were to sign Russell Wilson, it would be about the same amount. Geno Smith does play better than Russell Wilson right now. Kind of. Russell's better at not throwing interceptions. But Geno stays better in the pocket. But what set Russell to the Super Bowl? A really good run game, a really good offensive line, at least on the outside, not necessarily in the interior. Great wide receivers, one of them really tall. You see where I'm going with this? Some good tight ends, like Anthony McCoy, and then a really good defense. Great pass rush, good defensive backs. We kind of have all that. What if we just... He's like, I'm getting paid like $30 million from the Broncos anyways. Yeah, I'll sign with you guys for $18 million. And then we let Geno Smith go, and he signs with the Denver Broncos for $30 million instead. Because then he would just hand off to our great running backs and Walker and company. We invest on our interior line some more. And then we just have Russell Wilson throw deep bombs to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And then he has DSN playing the Jermaine Kearse role again. And let's fucking go. It's so goddamn stupid, it just might fucking work. It's so stupid, it might just fucking work. We just have Geno Smith as a loner. Russell Wilson goes and gets paid. We get a bunch of draft picks and stuff, build an offense for him. He comes back, and I talked about this. Where you're just like, build a team. Have the team be the team. Let your quarterbacks go. Get paid. And then when they want to come back in their twilight years, let them. Because ultimately you can't afford to pay top dollar quarterbacks, but you can pay top dollar offensive line and top dollar skill positions. So just have a pretty good quarterback in all the time. So just... if you have a good quarterback in their 30s that wants to come in and it happens to be Russell Wilson, he's like, I fucking miss Seattle. Denver was horrible. Please take me back, Pete. I don't like the way he plays football, but at like $18 million, which is how much Geno Smith is getting paid right now, I can't necessarily say no. You could still draft a quarterback and have him compete with a rookie quarterback. Or keep Drew Lock and do the same fucking thing where you have Drew Lock underneath fucking Russell Wilson with the same paychecks. It would be amazing if this happened. I would adore it just for storylines. Because then we would have all of these draft picks from Denver and their quarterbacks and their tight end if we decide to keep Fant. Oh, whew. Another possibility I've thought about is him going to the Falcons, because then he can throw to London, and they say, oh yeah, then he can throw to Pitts. Well, he can't really. Pitts is a tight end, but I don't think that will necessarily be a problem, because Pitts doesn't really block like a tight end, and that's been his problem. He needs to be used like a receiver. And does that sound familiar? Like Jimmy Graham. So it'd be interesting to see what would happen if Russell Wilson teamed up with a big tight end again that needs targets down the field, and see if he can maybe regurgitate some of his past. Of course, another thought I had was him going to Las Vegas to join this really good Raiders defense and hand off to Josh Jacobs. Assuming that they keep their coach, it'd be really cool not only for him to have revenge games against the Broncos, but to stay in a team that's building and very competitive. Cool. Let's move on. I called that segment Russell Wilson versus the Steelers, Steal. Let's move on to Seahawks versus the Steelers. I've been talking a lot today, so my voice is tired, so bear with me. And this might be a tired subject, but we're going to talk about playoffs. You want to talk about playoffs? Yeah, we're going to talk about playoffs. Voice tired? You gonna drink soda? I didn't fill my water cup. I'll just have to suffer. Did not have preparation for my separation. The Steelers are actually in a better spot to make the playoffs than I thought. They have 8 wins. If they win, of course they'll have 9 wins, then it'll be 9-7, but it'll put them in the 7th seed wildcard spot, because this is assuming that in the final week of the season, week 18, when they play the Ravens, they lose. So that they most likely end up in the 7th seed against Miami. How do I know this? Well, according to ESPN NFL Playoff Machine projections, there's a link down below if you would like to play along. Ba-dum-bump. If the Seahawks win tomorrow, then the Steelers would have to beat the Ravens to be 9-7 and get back in. I think, unless the Bengals. Let's continue. No, because if the Steelers would be out anyways if they beat the Ravens, because the Bengals beat us earlier in the season. If the Bengals lose in week 18, then the Colts are in. You know what? Actually, to make this easier, let me do something. I'm going to share my screen. Here it is. ESPN.com playoffs/machine. This is week 17. If we beat the Steelers, Indianapolis. Hold on. If we beat the Steelers this week and the Ravens beat the Steelers next week, Indianapolis is going to be in the 7th seed. And we'll be in the 6th seed. We're projected to be in the 6th seed versus Detroit, who lost to the Cowboys tonight in heartbreaking fashion, I might add. They converted a 2-point conversion at the end of the game to win the game. So it was 19-20. They could have kicked a 2-point conversion, 1 point extra point, and won the game, but instead their coach decided to kick a 2-point, go for 2. They converted it right away, but one of their players apparently didn't signal that he was going in to run a route, and he was the one that was targeted downfield, and so it was a 5-yard penalty instead. And then they tried to convert a 2-yard again, a 2-point again, and for some reason I'm having trouble explaining this, and didn't get it. Penalty, offsides by the Cowboys defense. So it moves the ball 5 yards closer. They try again for a 2-point conversion. Don't get it. Game's over. Cowboys win. And the Lions are just sitting there like, I thought we won. it was fucking sad. Anyways, so if the Steelers beat us, and the Ravens, hold on, and the Bengals, wait, the Steelers beat us and beat the Ravens? Is that what's going on here? If the Steelers beat us and beat the Ravens, oops, then they're guaranteed the 7th. Yeah. Okay. For some, it was telling me before that it was a split odd, and that just by beating us guaranteed them an opportunity to get in. So what does need to happen? The Colts need to lose. And what's going on with the Jaguars? Jaguars need to lose to the Titans, and then they get in. What if the Bengals win? So the Bengals need to lose to the Browns. Colts need to lose to the Texans. Jaguars need to lose to the Titans. And that's how they overcome losing to the Ravens. If they beat us. So they want to beat us like really hard. This is their opportunity, because they don't think they're going to beat the Ravens. But I do think they might have beaten the Ravens earlier in the season, so it's possible. But, they're going to put everything they have into this game. We don't need this win. But if we, look, I already selected them to win, and we still have the 7th seed wrapped up. And if we go in and the Cardinals beat us, we're still in the 7th seed. So we could lose the next 2 games at 8 and 9, and we still have an opportunity to make it in. It's not good, but there's an opportunity in there. So just breathe these next 2 games during this stressful situation. All right, let me go back. Sorry that took longer than I thought. I'm tired. I did almost an 8-hour stream. Let's see. Pittsburgh. There's a fun stat I forgot to pull up for you about Pittsburgh and their defense. So let me find that really quick. Let me show you something. This is, of course, credit to Arjun Menon. 100. Share my screen. How often defenses are forcing turnover-worthy plays from opposing quarterbacks from weeks 1 through 16. Turnover-worthy play totals forced. It's up. And then these are the teams. The Steelers are ranked number 7. Over here, they've had 25 turnover-worthy plays from opposing quarterbacks. The Seahawks are down here with 20. So this counts like Tariq Woolen, for instance, dropping the interception last week. The Browns are way up here at 33, which we played them earlier in the season. They're fucking nuts. The Cowboys, interestingly enough, are at 21, and they have that one guy who had like 6 pick sixes or 7 pick sixes this season, which set an NFL record. It was crazy. So the rest of his team is not doing as well. So when you look at that, this is what I'm trying to point out, is we had to worry about one guy. We had to worry about one player that was making up for a big chunk of their turnovers. And then the rest of the team, not so much. When you look at the Seahawks, we have Julian Love who's taking up like 4. But then the rest of the team, our turnovers are spread out. When you look at the Steelers, TJ Watt has 17. And yeah, their linebackers each have about like 2. He has 17 sacks. But TJ Watt has a ton of these sacks. So it's a take care of TJ Watt and the rest will come. You should be okay situation. But don't disrespect their defense. This defense is a bunch of ballers. But just like the Cowboys, I think we should be able to put up a ton of points on them. If we just play good, smart football. But we need to not turn over the ball because we, like, for instance, Geno Smith was throwing those out routes that were leading to picks. So just like the Cowboys, don't throw those out routes, because I begged all week long against the Cowboys, don't throw an out route against the guy that keeps picking off out routes. And what did Shane Waldron do? He called a hot route that was an out route for Geno Smith to throw directly against the guy who picks out routes. And what happened? He picked off the fucking out route. Let's learn from our past mistakes, Waldron, and not throw out routes this week. Por favor. That'd be really nice, because this is the team that will probably take advantage of those mistakes. Likewise, we talked about Mason Rudolph earlier in the week. He is going to throw interception opportunities in the middle of the field. Peter King, I don't know why I did this to myself. I don't know why I do this to myself. I made the mistake of watching Florio and Peter King. Florio looked like he was actually pissing off Peter King. Like, quit interrupting me, young man. Don't you dare talk to me like that, young man. Like, just look like it was fucking funny, actually, in hindsight. It's just disrespectful. But Peter King was comparing Mason Rudolph to Ben Roethlisberger. And first of all, if he's being genuine about that, I've said time and time again that there's something called the Steeler way, which is we want to throw explosives down the field, and we want to have explosive defensive plays. They don't care about intermediate plays. They don't care about short plays. If they throw them, they're supposed to lead to giant yak, or they're supposed to be what I call gamble plays. I'm going to throw the dice. Hopefully something explosive comes from it, and they're on neutral downs. And likewise, this happens with the shots they take downfield or blitzes they make. They'll blitz a lot and not necessarily get home, but it's like, hopefully I get a negative 6-yard play here, or hopefully I get a 40-yard play here. If I don't complete it, whatever, it was a neutral down. Gamble plays. It's their goal. Always be explosive. And so they put every quarterback in this play. They've done it since the Steel Curtain. They want to establish explosives and shut down explosives. And so if you're going to say he looks like Ben Roethlisberger, if that's what you mean, I'm with you. If you're saying he looks like Ben Roethlisberger because you're trying to say, well, he's like a Steeler, yeah, and he had a good day on Christmas, then it's weak reporting. Because he can only throw, as I've seen, based off of looking at his target maps. Admittedly, I have not broken down tape of him. If you want that, look at Seattle Overload with Matty F. Brown and Griffin and Ty. They have done so. I don't have the time to do so and don't choose to. Seattle Overload was great. Like and subscribe to them. From what I've seen from the target maps, Mason Rudolph targets the left. He's the opposite of Mitch Trubisky. It's funny. If you just combine the two quarterbacks together, you have a complete quarterback. When Mason throws to the deep right, he has a tendency to not just miss, but throw interceptions. Which means there's another good opportunity for Julian Love. Julian Love to have an interception. He could have his 5th interception this week. He also throws interceptions on the inner hash marks. So Bobby might have one. Devin Bush, who's coming in for Brooks, might have one. Or if Devin Bush, because again, he's coming in having a revenge Pittsburgh game. He was out he was having health issues for 4 years, supposedly, and then got released, didn't pick up his contract. Seattle picked him up. This is his comeback game. This is a revenge game against Pittsburgh, fittingly healthy since he wasn't playing all year. So if Mike Tomlin knows how to attack him, then maybe Mason Rudolph will cook him. Or maybe he knows how to play against Mason Rudolph because he practiced against him for 4 years. He might have a pick against him. Mason's good at throwing on the upper left corner, which is the Diggs corner and the Woolen corner. Well, you know who's good at pass protection? Diggs and fucking Woolen. So all we need to do is play good to our tendencies, which is pass coverage over there, pass coverage in these spot areas where, according to his tendencies, he throws interceptions. And he, on his Christmas day where he was Ben Roethlisberger, was not targeting that side of the field. He stuck to his career tendencies since 2019, only targeting the left side of the field. If he continues, they'll need to run the ball Najee Harris, who's a good running back and who's had a bunch of good receptions underneath, particularly on the bottom right. If he gets the ball on the bottom right, he'll start to open up the hash marks. We don't want that to happen, obviously. If we have another good game of good tackling, if we have a great game of tackling, and we make it a Mason Rudolph needs to beat us game, it won't really matter how good this Steelers defense is. We're going to beat them. And sure, it might be we come back in the third quarter start to figure out to run the ball again like we did against the Eagles and the goddamn Titans. But I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping we're running the ball because we finally learned our lesson against the Titans. And we're going to run down the middle. And when they blitz all over us, because this is what they want to do, Geno Smith is going to sell the play action, throw into their fire zones, hit JSN and get some yak, hit Fant and get some yak, hit the slant and get some yak, slow up that blitz, hand off into the blitz. Let Charbonnet and Walker meet the man in the hole. This Watt, brother, Watt, is playing like a defensive player of the year candidate. And the last time we played one like that, it was Myles Garrett. And the other one we played like that, it was Parsons. You know the difference between those two games? We put up 33 points or something on the Dallas Cowboys because we had our 2 tackles in. At least we had our left tackle in. Let's cook this Steelers team. There's no reason we can't. Their free safety is out. He got suspended for bullshit reasons. And also, Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be playing down in the middle. We have too many great targets for them. He's going to be focused on covering Parkinson. DK's going to eat. JSN's going to eat. Lockett's going to run those out routes. And because of the run game, we're going to cook those out routes, actually. He's going to set them up appropriately. Shane Waldron will have learned the lesson. You heard me talk about out routes before. What I mean is you got to run the ball so that the quarterback has the proper step pattern timing advantage to throw it so that the cornerback doesn't break on it. Let's fucking go, Seahawks. Beat the Steelers. Please like and subscribe. Fuck Sean Payton. Russell Wilson deserves better. Let's fucking go. Also, shout out to the Seattle Overload. They're great.